On Monday the 24th of April just last year, an 18-year-old student named Janiyah Thompson was witnessed walking away from her high school after she had explained to her older brother how she was leaving early to take care of something. However, to this day she has not been seen or heard from since. Later that day, Janiyah was then captured by security cameras at the Naylor Road metro station in Temple Hills, Maryland, but it is unknown if she was able to board a train or who she was with at the time. So, after her family started to notice her absence, they reported her missing to the Prince George's County Police Department with the hope that they would be able to find her before it was too late. But despite their desperate pleas for help, the police explained that due to Janiyah's age at the time of her disappearance, she was technically an adult and therefore free to run away if she wanted to. So, with little help from the authorities, Janiyah's family then turned to the media in an attempt to raise some more awareness of the case by informing the public about her disappearance themselves. However, after one whole year of searching, the now 19-year-old is still nowhere to be seen, and to this day, the local police remain uninterested in helping bring this young woman home to her family, understandably causing the community to wonder what really happened to Janiyah Thompson. And could she be Maryland's next victim of human trafficking? Janiyah Thompson was born in the mid-2000s to her loving mother and devoted father Clinton Hubbard in the state of Maryland alongside her many siblings. Little is known about her younger years, but what we do know is that Janiyah was an intelligent and hard-working person who would go on to attend Eastern Senior High School in Washington, D.C., where she had plans of one day becoming a public servant to her country. Janiyah was a dedicated member of the Reserve Officers Training Corps, otherwise known as the ROTC, which is a leadership training and development program that prepares college-age students for service opportunities in the Army, Marine Corps or the Navy, to name a few. And given her driven personality, everybody knew it would only be a matter of time before she would graduate and move into a full-time position. But Janiyah's life wasn't perfect, as like with many people, she did suffer from some health struggles that would leave her in a concerning state if she would ever forget to take her medications. Once again, it is unknown exactly what had occurred in her childhood to cause this illness, or if it was something she was born with. But regardless of its origins, it was always evident that Janiyah would not let her health problems define her, as she would continue to battle through life despite her difficulties. However, it wouldn't be too much longer before this bright future would seem to come to a grinding halt, when the 18-year-old high school student would suddenly disappear on that fateful day in April. On Monday the 24th of April, the young woman would spontaneously decide to leave early from school after messaging her brother to explain that she needed to take care of something. Curious to know what it was, he asked his younger sister what her plans were, but for some strange reason, he could never seem to get a clear answer. But knowing Janiyah to be a well-disciplined and trustworthy person, he didn't feel too concerned by this exchange and simply accepted that she didn't want to disclose her plans, which after all she had every right to do. However, things would slowly start to evolve throughout the day, as her family would eventually notice that nobody had heard from Janiyah since she had messaged her brother earlier on in the day, and given that she was still a junior in high school, her absence was beginning to cause a stir. So, when the next morning came and her family noticed that Janiyah wasn't in her bed, everybody knew that something was very wrong, and in response to this discovery, her family began blowing up Janiyah's phone in the hopes she would respond back and confirm her safety. But to their dismay, hours would continue to skip by, with Janiyah continuing to remain silent, with nobody having the slightest of clues where she could be. So, once all other methods had failed, her family realized that they had no other option than to report her missing to the local police. On Tuesday the 25th of April, the Prince George's County Police Department would respond to a call made by the concerned family who, by now, were seriously worried about their loved one. They informed the police how Janiyah had failed to show up for school that day and had left early the day before, which was made even worse when they realised that nobody could get a hold of her on the phone. Her father also explained how this behaviour was very much unlike his daughter, and that this was much more of a cause for concern than it seemed to be on the surface. However, to the surprise of the entire family, the police would reply with an incredibly disheartening response, as they would go on to explain how, due to her age, Janiyah could not be treated as a missing child, and therefore, all the resources that would usually come with a search were off limits, at least until there was more evidence of danger. According to the police officers, because Janiyah was technically an adult, she was entitled to run away from home if she wanted to, so with this in mind, there was nothing more they could do other than offering their moral support. So upon hearing this news, Janiyah's family were left desperate for help, and with nowhere else to turn, they approached the local news stations to see if they could help spread awareness of the case themselves. And to their luck, it wouldn't be long before an interview would take place that they hoped could have potentially changed everything. On Saturday the 27th of May, Janiyah's father Clinton Hubbard would meet with a reporter from CBS News 4 to discuss his daughter's case, in an effort to try and get her story some more public awareness, as even after several weeks of inconclusive searching, the police still didn't seem too interested in the case. During the interview, Clinton would reveal that Janiyah was last seen at the Naylor Road metro station in Temple Hills, Maryland, which was approximately 3 miles away from her school in DC. According to Clinton, they had not been able to come up with any potential leads, expressing that Janiyah was known to frequent the area of Suitland, which coincidentally is also one of the more dangerous parts of Temple Hills, as it possesses one of the highest rates of violent crime. However, despite the lack of information, Clinton still concluded the interview with relatively high hopes, knowing that at the very least he was able to show his daughter's face and spread awareness of her story. But even with this boost in attention, it seemed that the case would remain cold for the following weeks, and as each day passed, Janiyah's family would grow even more desperate for answers, as they began to fear the worst. By now, Janiyah's face had been plastered all over social media, and her family would continue to share the details of the case with everybody they knew, holding on to the hope that it would only be a matter of time before a witness would come forward. However, weeks would soon turn to months, and eventually years, meaning to this day, Janiyah Thompson still officially remains a missing person, leaving a community heartbroken and a family utterly devastated, to say the least. Now, unfortunately, as far as the official investigation goes, this is all we know for now. But despite the lack of leads in Janiyah's case, her family have still not given up on their search, with missing person groups such as the Missing and Black Foundation continuing to share her story to their thousands of followers. However, given that Janiyah has now been officially missing for over a year, alongside the incredibly concerning details that surround her disappearance, I can't help but feel that the likelihood of her safe return is only growing weaker as time passes. So, with that, let's get into some of the potential theories. Now, if you're a regular viewer of my channel, then you will know that I usually like to start this portion of the video by detailing the plausibility of some of the more positive theories, as I believe until we have a confirmed conclusion, anything is possible. But just before I get into the theories themselves, I feel I have to mention the grave injustice that Janiyah's family have received from the Prince George's County Police Department, as I personally find it ridiculous that an 18-year-old girl can suddenly go missing with the police refusing to help. I understand that Janiyah is technically classified as an adult, but given that we are talking about a person that was still in high school at the time of her disappearance, I don't understand how an exception could not be made in this case. Also, given that Janiyah struggled with health problems which required her to take regular medication, surely this means that her absence would have potentially been life-threatening, which to me is more than enough of a reason to start a full-on investigation. But before I get too carried away here, the fact is a year has now gone by, so I feel the more important thing to focus on right now would be to hypothesize where Janiyah could be, and how we can get her back to her family. So with this in mind, could Janiyah Thompson have simply decided to run away from home and start a new life? Or could there be a much more sinister reason behind her disappearance? Well, based on the evidence available, it is very difficult to say for certain, as there are only a few articles about this case on the internet, and the police have not come forward to release any further details, despite the fact that Janiyah has now been missing for over a year. But for argument's sake, let's say that Janiyah did simply run away from home, but why would she have ever done such a thing, and where could she be? Now, from the testimony of her father, Clinton Hubbard, it would seem that Janiyah was not the sort of girl that would just suddenly disappear without telling anyone. In fact, the evidence shows that she was a disciplined young woman who was dedicated to the ROTC training program, meaning if she had left home without mentioning anything, this would have been extremely out of character. But I suppose it's possible that her sudden decision to leave home could have been the result of her health struggles that to this day have still not been revealed to the public. She was last seen at a metro station, so perhaps she just hopped on a bus or train and fled the area in search of a fresh start. However, given the testimony of her family alongside the violent crime rates of Temple Hills, I would personally be more inclined to believe that her disappearance may not have been completely self-inflicted. A crime that is becoming increasingly more problematic in the state of Maryland is the underground practice of human trafficking, which unfortunately remains a topic that is not talked about enough due to its complex nature and lack of research. It's also very difficult to identify a case of human trafficking, as a lot of the time the victims are seen as nothing more than sex workers, and therefore do not receive the same amount of attention from the police. Usually there are also drugs involved as well, which creates even more confusion around whether these victims are there by choice or by force. But getting back to the case at hand, when it comes to Janiyah Thompson, there were never any signs that she would have ever chosen to go down this path in life, which leads me to believe that if she did somehow get tied up in the world of human trafficking, there is no way she would have ended up there on her own accord. So, if this is the case, I truly hope that it will only be a matter of time before she can find a way out and be returned to her family. But once again, before I get too carried away, I must remind you that these comments are nothing more than theories on my end, and there is absolutely no hard evidence to back them up, other than the words put forward by her family. However, I do think that these topics are worth discussing nonetheless, as I believe this helps provide a voice to those who do not have one in today's society. And if anything, Janiyah's case could be used to help raise awareness for the many women that are trapped in these conditions, desperate for a way out. But human trafficking is not the only criminal-related possibility here, as the fact remains that Janiyah went missing in an area which was located not too far from the Potomac River, and if there is anything I've learnt after covering so many missing person cases, it's that a very common conclusion to these stories is that the victims more often than not end up in a river for one reason or another. Now once again, I must express that there has been no evidence released to show that this could have been a possibility. But given the fact that Janiyah has not been seen for over a year now, with not one single sighting, I can't help but feel that there is a small chance that her life was cruelly taken, which, if true, would mean that her family may never get the closure they deserve. So with this in mind, I implore you to please help spread awareness of Janiyah's case, so that her family can get the support they need in finding out the truth about their missing loved one. Anyway, with that, I think I'll leave this video here. But if you have any theories of your own which you think may help explain what really happened to Janiyah Thompson, please leave your ideas in the comments down below and I will do my best to get back to you. But until then, thank you so much for watching and make sure to subscribe to the channel for updates on these stories. Also, if you would like to learn more about these types of missing person cases, or you just found this story interesting, feel free to check out the videos on screen now.